When when now you don't have that problem, but when you move out there
You
and you
take
have
your
all
winter
these
clothes with you.
piles of winter clothes, and you look and you say, now when I moved to California, by the way, we were live on the air. It's Mikey and Vinny. It's Friday morning,
Happy
Black Friday, as
Thanksgiving.
they like to say. Good morning, Mikey.
Morning, Vinny. Good morning to all our fans that happen to be there today. If you're full of pie and turkey, I understand. If you went Mexican food, I understand. If you had Lithuanian food, I understand.
How about yeah? How about yeah? It would be an interesting. I remember when I was a kid, we used to have the we 2 minutes, a minute into the show, and already I remember. But we used to have like a hybrid. We had like a half Italian, half traditional American Thanksgiving. So you had, and this is food wise. Well, we
Right.
did have it was psychological wise because everybody would wind up arguing with everybody else. So it did have the typical American
We didn't
thing.
have that last night. No arguments, no craziness. It was nice.
Well, Mikey, you might be right in that place where you're not old enough to have the senility of the grandfather who used to sit in a chair, get tossed, and then start, telling everybody about his World War II exploits.
Did I ever tell you the
And
time? Did I
yeah,
ever tell you the time?
I would tell you the time when when I was a kid, I was 16 when I went off to war. I snuck in when I was 14, but they sent me back. Um, but and so you don't have that. We're kind of almost in that thing where we're not the old fool at the party yet, and we're smart enough not to be the person who just sits there and talks politics and hates everything. And the younger kids, too busy with their kids, trying to get them to eat something and not throw stuff at the kids'
Or
table.
or just sit down for crying out loud? Would
Sit
you sit
down, get
down?
away from the television. Did you have a good Thanksgiving?
Had a great Thanksgiving. Sandy and Billy Eddie were the hosts. I was in charge of pie. I brought pie, lots of pie.
Good.
And Sandy did a great job. Billy was a fabulous host. Their kids, Brody and Drew Bella, were lovely, and God, they're growing up. Kailani, my daughter, her children, my grandchildren were there. Bo and Kennedy. Kennedy is getting ready to have her 8th birthday, so we had a little birthday party. We had birthday cake mixed in with a traditional pie,
There you go.
and dinner was good. Company was good. I was home in time to see 49er game on tape delay. And I want to thank everyone involved for a great evening.
You couldn't really yeah, it sounds like it's a perfect Thanksgiving, right? I mean, it's we had my two roommates and I. Our the original plan was to go out to the Capitol Grill and have dinner.
That's a good idea. That's a fine idea.
Yeah,
Let's go.
it
Let's go
was.
now.
But then we found out that there was these people that had just moved in that I guess didn't have much going on. A young couple, very young um, Asian couple that didn't have anything to
Family.
do for Thanksgiving really. So we kind of switched in mid gear and ordered out, catered the turkey and everything. You go pick it all up. It's I don't know, $100 something, and you go and you pick it all up and you bring it home and you open it up, and it was fine. And pies and everything, and just sitting around the table. It was interesting because it was sitting around the table getting to know two people that we really didn't know.
Right.
So it was really interesting, and it was especially interesting in the case that he is actually born in China and moved here um, fairly recent. Not. I mean, he's here maybe since his junior year of college, and maybe now he works for Amazon. Maybe he's 30, something like that.
So he's on an adventure.
Yeah, so he is. He's on an adventure, and it was really interesting to talk to him and get to kind of know, get a perspective from a non-American perspective of the world, the world situation and what's going
Right.
on, and to kind of understand a little bit more how lucky we are to enjoy the freedoms that we do, because obviously they don't over there. And he's he was it was easy enough for him to talk about it,
Right.
and not just, well, I really don't want to. No, it was a very, and and he loves cars, so we had a lot. Yeah, I mean, it was a one of those, very nice, very nice couple, and so we got to, we had the really cool thing of getting to meet a couple of people, which actually, if you think about it, that's what the original Thanksgiving was about, right? Meeting some
You
people
you
that
meet your neighbors.
you didn't know before. you know,
How did that work out for the Indians, by the way?
not too well, not
They
too
gave
well
they gave him they gave
until
him a they gave him a pumpkin pie, and it just never worked out after that.
until they figured out that they could make some coin throwing up casinos on the side of the interstate.
The coin
Other
of
than that, it really hasn't worked out for them, has it?
the prophet of the oppressor.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, to get the descendants of the oppressors in and drag them down and say, "Hey,
Well, if you mix a traditional Thanksgiving with an Italian Thanksgiving, what's the Italian side look like? What do we eat?
well, it's funny because I'm half Italian and half Irish, so the Irish side goes for the kind of traditional Thanksgiving, but the Italian side, you incorporate lasagna as a
Yeah,
course.
can't go
You
wrong.
incorporate a big, beautiful antipasto plate, which, since I've been back here, when I was back in Pittsburgh, I used to go home for, back to New York for Thanksgiving almost every year. And it was really nice. It was, because they still in my family do some of that. My sister Stacy makes this huge antipasto plate that has every kind of cured meat known to man on it, and artichoke. I mean, it's really just it's a picturesque thing just to look at. It's a work of art. Now, you almost don't want to eat it, but nobody gets that crazy. And you get good bread, good Italian bread, not the stuff that the artesian this and that. Give me the good Italian bread from the bakery on the down the corner there. And so you mix that, and there's also kind of a religious component that kind of edges its way into it a little bit too, in that you feel,
You feel the little baby Jesus watching you?
well, yeah, because usually, oddly enough, it is that. Although you don't see the baby Jesus, because by that time the creche is
Right.
usually up. Now they don't put up the tree and they don't put up the lights and everything, but in my family, on my mother's side, they lived upstairs. My grandmother and my aunt lived upstairs, and they had the room that they put the tree in, which was the front room. And um, so the first thing that goes up is the nativity scene. So the little baby Jesus is not in the nativity scene, because any good Catholic will tell you that they don't put the baby in the nativity scene until Christmas Eve.
It's
There is no baby
just the
before
goats and the
Christmas.
wildebeest and the mule and
Yeah,
the
the
Wolverine.
three wise men, the two stupid men. Nobody ever talks about the two stupid guys.
They didn't accomplish much, but they did get bit by that goat. The goat didn't like that
Ev-
one guy.
Everybody talks about the three wise men and the frankincense and the myrrh and all of that stuff. Nobody ever talks about the two idiots that that went to like 9 different other stables before they finally figured out. And one of these days, I'm going to have to sit down and write the story of the two idiots.
They ended
Who
up at a 7-Eleven getting a Slurpee, as I remember. That was the last we ever saw of them.
Well, they were well intentioned. I mean, they had the same intention as the three wise men.
Are you saying they were Republicans?
I don't think anybody's ever called the Republican wise, have they? Except for Liz Cheney and
No, but
Adam
just
Kinzinger.
well-intentioned people doing the wrong thing. It just sounds so familiar.
But so that was it. So there was a little bit more of a religious overtone, and then there's the mourning part of it.
What do you do in the morning?
Yeah, mourning, where we start to talk about those who are no longer with us.
Oh, I see.
Mourning. So you go back, and everybody who lost somebody within the past 5 years gets a chance to wail. And I distinctly remember that between the main course and dessert, is people would sit around, they'd break out the anisette, and they'd down a couple of little anisettes, and then the next thing Aunt Millie is sitting there talking about her husband, who none of us ever met. I'm not even sure she had a husband. But
she's wailing about it anyway.
But she's wailing about it anyway, because that's what Italians do. They wail about the people who are gone. You see the Italian uniform, which is the black dress and the shoes with the thick heels and the black stockings and the veil and everything.
It's a harsh look.
Yeah, it's a uniform. I mean, as a matter of fact, these people are so bad they rent themselves out to funeral homes.
Oh God, really? Professional?
If somebody has nobody to mourn them, they'll go, give them $25 and they'll go down there and sit there for 3 days and wail. Professional wailers. They were in, matter of fact, Jimmy Breslin wrote about them in The Gang That Couldn't Shoot Straight. Mrs. Torra Grossa. She was available to go to any funeral.
She was a professional.
She was a professional wailer. You got it down there and you gave it $25 and you think it was her kid that passed away.
What about the idea that Thanksgiving dinner was coming? Who took a break from the wailing to put the actual turkey in?
Well, it's funny. I'm trying to think now. Usually my grandmother and my aunt, because we almost always had it at my grandmother's house, which was nothing but the second story of our house.
Right.
We lived in a 2-family house, and they had the top floor, we had the bottom floor, and so we would travel upstairs, and several relatives would come from all over the place. A couple of times we went out to Jersey, where Aunt Millie lived, and they put together the feast. But usually my grandmother on my mother's side and my Aunt Rose, who just a few years ago passed away, were in charge of doing everything, of putting everything together. And
the cooks and the mastermind of the clock, so that the potatoes were ready when the turkey was ready.
Everything fell right into sequence, man. I don't ever remember, except 1 year. I do remember 1 year the oven broke.
Uh-oh.
And the turkey wouldn't fit in our oven for some reason. They were cooking it upstairs. And oddly enough, upstairs they had a gas range, but we had an electric range downstairs.
That's progress.
It was half progress, I guess. So we had to, my dad took the turkey and took it up around the corner to the deli. And the guy, Gus, in the deli, cooked the turkey for us.
Stuck it in the oven.
Gus, the German, stuck it, the German guy in the deli, he put it in there. And, he had those industrial ovens, those huge ovens. And he got it done in, this is the days when every deli made their own stuff, made their own potato salad, made their own coleslaw. So you could go to different delis and get different potato salads. And
not only that, in New York, which I do not see having taken over here in LA, if you go to a deli, there's a turkey being carved every day.
Oh yeah,
For
yeah,
turkey sandwiches. Turkey
yeah.
sandwiches
Fresh
is not from
turkey
a loaf, not
sandwiches.
from a loaf of processed turkey. It's
Yeah,
from a turkey, and it's sitting right there, and they're carving it right. You want white meat? You want dark meat? You want a little of the leg? What do you want?
at the very least, they're doing a turkey breast every day.
Yeah,
Not the and again, not the processed turkey breast. I'm talking
no, real
about the
breast.
actual. They get two of those big turkey breasts and stick them in the oven, and they cut off of those for sandwiches. Because the turkey, turkey and Swiss sandwich is very popular in New York.
Turkey and
They're-
pastrami, I recommend if you want to try something.
it's kind of funny. I don't ever remember growing up mixing. Now Italians mix the meats, but if you
So
want to
your Italian side was willing, but your Irish side was too
the
traditional.
Irish side wasn't so willing to mix the meat, but they also ate olive loaf and head
I'm
cheese.
not doing that.
Olive loaf wasn't bad. Head cheese was. I was never a head
They
cheese
they
guy.
took they took the delicatessen experiment too far for head cheese.
The cold cuts part of it, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. The cold cuts part of it definitely had some eerie stuff in it, and then you had a lot of the traditional German stuff.
Potato salad, man.
Well, no, 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 the cold cuts.
Mm.
What is
Oh,
it? They made
bratwurst.
sandwiches out of. I forget what it was, but there was like like a sliced bratwurst and liverwurst and a whole bunch of things with wursts on the end of it.
It could be worse, but it's
Right.
only gonna get worse.
There were two companies were um that really had the whole cold cut business knocked up. Boar's Head,
Oh,
which
yeah. They're
we've
still around.
come to know out here, but for many many years, even when I moved out here from New York, was only in New York, New Jersey, and Philadelphia.
Isn't it funny that with all the importing the West Coast has done from the East Coast with people and traditions and nationalities, it took forever to get a decent delicatessen on the West Coast. And even then, it wasn't right.
Yeah,
It
I
just wasn't
never,
right.
I never, like I like the gallows salami and the stuff that comes out of San Francisco, but it
Oh,
was never
yeah.
as good as the stuff in New York.
No.
Well, see, I'm a proponent of a theory that has to do with fear and food. Nobody ever really talks about this, but I think Gordon Ramsay has kind of hit on it a little bit.
He's not afraid of food, is he?
No, but if you run a restaurant in New York, it's a mobbed up Italian neighborhood. The last thing you want to do is cook a meal for somebody or give them a sandwich that isn't good
It would
because you
not be
don't
a
want
good
them to
that would
send
be
Anthony and Vito around to
that's not
see
a
you.
path forward. Yeah.
Hey, the boss bought a salami provolone capicola sandwich,
He didn't
and
like it.
he was heaving by 3 o'clock. He wants to see you. That's not a recipe for success.
You're gonna miss dinner under those conditions.
You might be missing breakfast too. So that's why I think really good restaurants are in New York because half the people that are cooking there are afraid that they're going to serve the wrong meal to the wrong person, and it's not going to be good for anybody.
Caution first.
Yeah, exactly.
But
So
if you went into a deli on West 72nd Street, you wouldn't worry about it being a good New York deli or a fashionable deli or all the things that you wanted would be behind the counter, that you could not get a sandwich that you would be absolutely thrilled with, or that they have the wrong kind of mustard, or they don't know what kind of bread to use, or they think they're a deli, but look around, you can see it's not a deli, it just sort of looks like one.
right, yeah, you very until probably until the late 70s, where you started to get in Manhattan, especially, you started to get these kind of chain delis like Smilers
Don't know it.
or Merritt Farms or
That's
something
not,
like that. But a deli, when I was growing
that
up, it,
sounds like it's run by Presbyterians, Merritt Farms.
yeah, you know what? Merritt Farms was one of the only places you could get a rotisserie chicken.
Hmm.
They
Okay.
had, and they were great. Most of them were located just off of subway stations,
Sell a whole chicken?
and they sell a whole chicken on a rotisserie for about $3.99 or $2.99 or something like that. I forget what it was, but and it was, and they had, if it was a really busy subway station, they had two rotisseries going, and then they had the potatoes, and it was all cooked in the store.
Get yourself a dinner to go.
And yeah, and this was before, because you have to remember that before 1965, 66, there were no fast food places in New York.
I remember when I lived in New York last time, trying to think what year it was. Doesn't really matter.
Yeah,
McDonald's opened in New York, and it was a sensation. There was a line around the block.
the closest McDonald's to where I grew up, where I lived in Queens, was um in Elmsford, New York, which is up in Westchester. Probably till about
Not exactly walking
1965.
distance. So Vinny, run up to Ellsworth and get me a Big Mac. Oh no, quarter pounder with cheese.
I didn't have them then. All I had was, I remember, all I had was a hamburger, a cheeseburger, a double hamburger, a double cheeseburger, and fries and a shake and Coke. And that was it. Um, the one fast food place we did have, or one of a couple, we had White Castle,
Of course.
which was there since 1934 or whatever, 24. I forget when they, um, and we had a place called Carol's, Carrols, which was a McDonald's like kind of burger place, but there wasn't a lot of them. I mean, there was two, three, four. I mean, it was a drive, and then you had the
The
famous.
Great American Burger had yet to be extended throughout all the 50
Right. It
states.
was a 19-cent burger, a 20-cent burger. But here's the one thing I remember about Carol's is they had the orange drink in the machine that spun around and sprayed it on the inside of the machine so you could see it cascading down. They had an orange and they had a grape machine like that. And then you had Burger and Shake, which was on 58th and Queens Boulevard. I think there was
I wonder what they served.
well, the one thing I remember about Burger and Shake that I will never forget is they had in the morning, they had that donut machine
Oh
that
yeah.
has the oil, and you put the dough on the one end and it goes through like on a conveyor belt and then comes up the other end. And you could go in there at 5, 6 o'clock in the morning and get oily hot donuts.
Watch them torture the donuts into fruition.
Yeah, with a little bit of sugar on them. They were pretty much the best thing you could ever eat, as far as taste and satisfaction. Probably not good for your health.
Who's to say?
Going to die of something, you may as well die of cholesterol, right?
You're gonna die watching Dr. Phil telling you not to eat donuts.
Exactly. So I may as well. But those were your fast food choices. Otherwise, um, everything was a diner. Everything was to go from a diner. That was fast food in those days. You went to the diner. We had several diners, obviously, and that's where you got whatever food you wanted. You could get it 24 hours a day at a diner.
Everybody saved room for pie last night at our table, and if you recall, I got 4 pies:
Yes. What did you get?
blueberry crumble, pecan, and 2 pumpkin pies because most people get involved with pumpkin. So I had the blueberry crumble and the pumpkin, and as it turned out, 4 pies for 10 people, 4 of them being kids, was not too much.
Really?
Yeah, we had we got into every one of the pies, and there was only like 3/4 of a pie left over, taking all the various pieces of the pies that was remaining. So it was a good guesstimate what we needed. I'm sorry we didn't have the Italian cookies, but we'll have that next time.
Yeah, I'll give you. You can order them. Well, there's two things you could do actually. Oddly enough, I think it's Walgreens or CVS. I forget. I think it might be CVS. Carries there's a company that makes those Italian rainbow cookies. And they put them into like individual serving packets.
Hmm.
They're not as good as the ones you would get at a bakery, but or you can call Ferrara and they'll deliver the cookies to
Ah,
you. And it's
excellent.
way you tell. And if you go to Ferrara.com and go on their website, you can buy anything. Italian pastries. They serve almost everything, I think, except the ones that have alcohol in them.
Well, I got home full, tired of being polite to everybody, sat down and said, now the only thing that could go wrong with this day is if the Seahawks beat the Niners. I can't have that. But I can't play and I can't affect the outcome of the game. What's going to happen? And I watched from the beginning, and lo and behold, the 49ers were in the groove. They had their mojo going.
Well, I thought it was a combination. I mean, the 49ers were definitely in a groove. I mean, they came in looking to
Advance.
inflict some hurt on the Seahawks. It was obvious, and
And it is a rivalry. There was some
yeah,
pushing it. There was some they got kind of chippy at a couple points.
yeah, and but also the Seahawks played into what they wanted to do. If there's a knock against Pete Carroll, it's that, well, number one, the offensive line is doesn't give Geno much of a chance, but I think he still has a better than average chance. But
Poor Gino's getting beat up.
but they teams that read the Seahawks read that they can force Geno into some stupid decisions.
Sooner or
Uh,
later.
he's not. Yeah, if you keep the pressure going and you keep him away from connecting with certain guys, that you can rattle him, and all of a sudden he's going to make that mistake that you're looking for.
The funny thing about the 49ers, they rush for big down linemen that are famous for sacking the other quarterbacks, but they don't blitz.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. Well, again, in the case of Geno and his crew, I don't know that they felt the need to last night.
Well, what they like to do is create pressure that makes the quarterback make a decision, but they have the full defense to deal with it.
Well, that's it. They have. I mean, when you force the quarterback into making a decision quicker than he wants to make, you also have to be able to sit back with your
Take advantage.
secondary,
Yeah.
and especially if it's going to be a passing decision, and do something. And the Seahawks last night, especially in that first half, I mean, they mounted somewhat of a comeback, but you could even see in the second half it just didn't.
Well, the defense scored, and that was wonderful for the crowd, but it didn't help the offense with their
Yeah,
ongoing problems.
and I forget what it is now, how many quarters it is, but it's a pretty large number of quarters where the Seahawks offense coming into last night's game did not score anything.
A
Special teams
touchdown.
score.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and again, I understand that Geno is hurt again, and I understand that he can pile up a lot of yardage and he can throw the ball and this and that, but I'm just not sold on him as a high pressure quarterback.
Well,
I think
I don't know who would succeed under those conditions. Unless
well, who was it
what's
that
your
beat him a couple of weeks ago? I mean, there's a couple. Was it Baltimore?
Baltimore's crazy.
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, so there's people that can succeed. The problem is with the 49ers is you can't make a mistake,
No, they're
and you
there to take
can't get
advantage.
penalties because they will make you pay for mistakes. And um, I'm forgetting now. I mean, it seems like the 49ers defense just covers every. I mean, they read defenses, they read offenses well, but they also um, have the horses.
And the guy that covered DK Metcalf, number 7
Yeah,
Ward, had a wonderful game.
yeah. He essentially took him out of the game, right?
Yeah, and that's not easy to do with Metcalf. It's just
Yeah.
not.
So if you have those two factors going for you, when you run up against a team that's good, that's really good. And I don't think anybody can argue that the 49ers are not a really good team. They're a very, very good team. I put them in the mix for the Super Bowl with no problem.
No problem at all. The
Um,
problem the problem is beating the Eagles. That's their next challenge.
yeah,
And then they
but
come back and you know who they play? The
no.
Seahawks.
Oh, they get them again, huh?
They get them again in Santa Clara.
Yeah, it's I don't know. I don't know what I mean. I don't know what the answer is for the Seahawks. I'm still not convinced that it was the right thing to do to give Geno Smith all that money and bank on him as the quarterback of the future for this franchise. He's one of those guys that put up numbers, um, but loses just enough to keep you out of it.
Well, you got to be healthy to compete in this league, and that's one thing he's not. His arm
Well,
hurts, his leg
Michael,
hurts.
I, that's an excuse. I'm sorry. He does the he did things when he was healthy that still
Irk you.
did the same thing. I mean, how many millions of times have we seen him throw into double coverage? Um, One time this year, I think he's led the team down the field for a winning drive. In the last 2 minutes of a game. I mean, he's horrible in the last 2 minutes of a game.
Well, one thing that struck me last night that I don't know the answer to is how come the 49ers have 3 running backs that can beat you and the Seahawks don't have anybody? How come the 49ers have 3 wide receivers that'll beat you? Kittle, Debo, Ayuk, and the Seahawks have DK Metcalf or maybe one other guy.
I think that the Seahawks
Why?
also have a young team that's still learning. And I think that's a big part of it. There are guys on the Seahawks that are going to be good,
In
but
future
the team
seasons?
is learning on the job. Because don't forget, I mean, how many players have they drafted? High draft picks did they have? I mean, they got good players, but they're going to have to. They're not fully there yet.
Well, they picked the pocket of the Denver team when they traded Russell Wilson, but
Well, yeah, but those are all young players, all draft choices, and generally, those people need some time to develop. No,
yeah, you're right. Some longer than others.
right? And I totally think they picked the pocket of Denver, but nobody wants to say a rebuilding phase, but it is a rebuilding phase. So, maybe you're going to be good next year. Maybe the year after, where you'll have a lot more experience and people who have kind of been able to bring their game up to that level, but I think it's just not. It's not their time. And then listen, they got hurt last year by being good. Same thing that happened this year happened last year. They were good out of the box,
Right.
and I don't think they got um overconfident about it. But it seems to be a team that when they whip off 3 or 4 or 5 wins in a row to begin the season, all of a sudden thinks that that's okay. We don't have to do anything else this year, and they start making stupid penalties and being out of position in places. Say
I had a flashback that had nothing to do with football yesterday. It had to do with Christmas presents. It was a time when I was at school at the University of Miami. What do you want for Christmas? Music. I made a list of like 10 albums that I wanted. And that was all that I put on my list. Buffalo Springfield, John Mayall. I can't remember the rest of them at this time. I wish I should be able to remember. Was Otis Redding on that list? Possibly. Live in Europe.
that
And
would
the
be a good
whole
list.
and the whole Christmas present was the size of a record, but it was this thick. It was just all the albums wrapped together, and it was wonderful. It's just what I wanted, and I don't think I've had a Christmas like that since, where so much music meant so much to me that was all that I was thinking about. I needed these new albums.
I think that was my 67 or 68. I can't remember which year. I think it was 68. Um, before I discovered the Columbia Music Club. Uh,
You better like all the artists on Epic.
hey, for a penny a piece, couldn't beat them. But I remember I did something quite similar. I asked my mother for I wanted albums, and I remember the Doors, Buffalo Springfield was in there. Every Mother's Son for some
Oh yeah,
reason, because I like that.
come on down to my
Come on
boat,
down to
baby.
my boat.
Yeah.
Trying to think of what else. There was a few other things in there that I really liked that I had heard and just really kind of was it Blues Image? Blues?
Ride, Captain Ride.
No. Blues Project.
Okay. Flute Thing
Al Cooper and
and Richard Green.
yes, who went on to form Blood, Sweat, and Tears, if I'm not mistaken,
He did.
out of the ashes of all of that. And I think I don't know. I didn't think I got everything I wanted, but it was like 4 or 5 different albums, maybe 6, and the same reaction. It just it accelerated my love of music more that year. I mean, I was already into it, but I was into more pop stuff, more of what you heard on WABC.
And if you
And
recall, in those days, the Beatles had an album every Christmas.
yeah, yes,
Not a Christmas album, just their new album would come out just in time for gift giving.
yeah, and that was 67 was Sergeant Pepper's, right? 68
Right.
was the White Album.
65 was Beatles 65.
65. Um, yeah, I mean the Beatles always had something on somewhere. Even the lesser ones that yeah, it's funny because there was albums that they released, not them particularly, but somebody from me. Like I remember distinctly getting my copy of Wonderwall Music from George Harrison.
On Zapple Records.
Yeah, and taking that home and going, what the hell? I want my money back.
George playing with a synthesizer.
And Ravi Shankar was on that, right? With his sitar.
Possibly. I
Yeah, I
had
think
it.
so. Um,
In fact, I bought it when I was at the University of Miami. I bought it in the student store. There was like one copy, and I snatched it up, and thinking that I had a find. Well, I did have a collector's item, but I did not exactly have a find.
yes, yes, you had a collector's item. If you could listen to it, that would be, I mean, I don't know. It was,
You wonder why they released it because it just wasn't. There was no hits. There was no singing. There was no hit. There was
it was
no.
nothing. I mean, it was just, it was,
It was Moog doodling with a Moog.
yeah, you could basically take it and put it on in the background of, something and forget it, set it and forget it. But it was George. It was a Beatle. And in those days, if the
I
Beatles
wonder if
put it
that is
out,
on. I wonder if that is on Spotify. It has to be.
yeah, I would think so. I would think everything that Apple or Zapple or any of those,
In fact, here in LA, Concert for George was on last night in one of the PBS stations. Here we go.
is it on?
The first song is called Microbes.
Yeah. Again,
And it goes on like that for the whole album.
yeah, that's pretty much 30 seconds of it gives you. They could have made it a 30-second record. People still would have bought it.
Oh, yeah. Anyway, just so you know
Yeah.
that it exists, there it is.
Of course, in those days, anything that had the Beatles' name on it, you just automatically ran down to the record store and bought.
Wonderwall music by George Harrison with an apple in the corner. Just, I'll have that.
Yeah, I remember. Matter of fact, I remember because I was working part time at the record store when that album came in, and I remember I was so happy because I got one of the first copies of it. Little did I know that nobody else probably wanted it, so that's why.
Well, like you, there was intense music collectors who wanted it but didn't get what they thought they were buying.
Right, there were a lot of people who got that album home and said,
What
"The
have I
hell
done?
is this?"
I could have had Gary Puckett in the Union Gap for the same price.
I could have taken home the Tremolos and Silence is Golden. This for $3.99. I could have gotten some good music. But last year, when he sold it in his record collection for $1,200, because they never reprinted it. Did they ever do anything past the original printing of that record?
I don't think. Well, it's on Spotify. I don't know. Beyond that, apparently you can buy it online if you really need it.
Yeah, and I just sorry, but I just don't think there's a person alive that needs that record.
And
I
the
mean,
interesting thing is, all the rest of his individual solo releases were so well crafted. There was always a hit. There was always a reason to get involved.
and I'll bet you if you took this record to India, you would probably find some people that think it's a well crafted record of its type.
Well, you can't dance to it, so it must be a meditative piece.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure, like I said, that if you were running a local Hare Krishna temple, you bought that and you had it on for kirtan every night at 7 o'clock.
Of course, the local one here is on Sunset Boulevard, so it's a little bit different.
Boy, I haven't
Self
been to
self
a Hare Krishna.
self-realization center.
Yeah, I haven't been to a Hare Krishna temple in years, man.
Now, there's a challenge for our Republican friends, the two stupid guys that bought a Slurpee at the 7-Eleven on Christmas Day. Not realization, self-realization. You have to do it yourself. You have to be aware enough to do it yourself. And that's something, self-awareness is not high up on the, you know what's higher than self-awareness for the Republicans? Not backing down. They just don't back down. They take a indefensible, ridiculous, preposterous position and they defend it to their death. That is not. That's the opposite.
Right. That's what they do.
That's the
That's
opposite
what
of self-realization.
that's what the whole thing is about. It's about, and if I make a mistake, I'm not going to apologize, or I'm not going to admit it. I'll lie my way out of it.
You'll never hear sorry from me.
It's like being a little kid. When your old man catches you doing something when you're a kid, and you're sitting there going, "No, no, no, I didn't do it. No, 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 no. Listen, I saw the guy come in through the window, and he snuck across the thing, and he took your pipe, and he snuck back out of the window, and
He
you'll
ate
make up
the.
an elaborate ruse."
It was that guy who ate the blueberry crumble. I never touched it.
Exactly. You'll make up some kind of phenomenal story. Spaceships came
And
down from
and
heaven and
and
sucked
stick.
up the pumpkin pie.
But you got to stick to it. You must never back down.
But the Republicans will do that, where the Democrats will blame it on themselves. They'll
It's like
just
Ron
say,
DeSantis never wore white go-go boots. If you ask him, he never wore them.
"Boy, is he fading fast, man." There's a guy that somehow found a big rock and tied it around his neck, and then threw himself in the water. I'm telling you, man. I mean, that's he's almost Gary Hart-esque.
I don't want to be governor of Florida anymore. I want more. Well, you're going to get more, and
And
you're
you're
not
going
going
to
to be
get more,
governor of
but it ain't going to be
Florida.
the more you're looking for.
No.
Yeah, it's really fascinating because he was the fair-haired boy,
He
but
thought he had it wrapped up. He thought he had it in the bag.
yeah, all I got to do is show up.
Instead, he's in the bag.
Well, he's so unlikable.
He's remarkably uncomfortable in his skin for someone who's so certain of the world.
You can now say what you want about this concept, but you can make a point, and it's been proven that to a certain section of our society, that Trump is likable. That Trump is
They
such
loved
he's
him.
a bumbling idiot,
They loved the Fuhrer.
but they love him. But DeSantis doesn't have that.
And if you pointed out, but he's a liar, he's a criminal, he's an insurrectionist. That's what we love about him.
That's what we like about him. He's different.
He's a lovable insurrectionist. He's a lovable liar. He's a lovable convict. Yeah, he
And
may be going to jail, but we love him in jail.
well, DeSantis is trying to be an intelligent Trump,
Trying.
and you can't be an intelligent Trump.
He's got some of the technique, but
The appeal of Trump is that the people that follow him tend to be as stupid as he is.
and they revel in it. It feels good.
If you want to see something sometime, go on YouTube and watch Jordan Klepper from The Daily Show, because he
Yeah.
goes out and he goes to Trump rallies and he interviews people
And they don't know he's making
that are Trump. And number one, they don't have the concept that he's making fun of them.
No, they don't. They have no idea.
And number two, some of the outrageous things that they say. I mean, if you stop down for a second and you think about them, it's like, how could you believe that and know how to put one foot in front of the other to move anywhere?
And the funny thing, Vinny, in those interviews, he'll catch them in their logic, and then they hesitate for a moment and just go, "Nah, I don't believe it."
Yeah, that's the funniest part of it almost.
So if
And
you believe that, you believe anything.
Well, I used to think it was
no,
pretty funny.
yes, yeah, but it's sad now.
But the more I look at it, the more I see it, the more I realize that these people could be some of the people who will be determining. It would be funny, I guess, if they were Australian. It would be funny if they were
Australians
New
are funny
Zealanders,
people.
if they were Argentinians, if they were Brazilians. It'd be funny. But because they're Americans and they actually can put their finger on a voting lever,
And will.
it becomes less funny. And
We become a nation of the great unwashed. We are the ignorant capital of the world.
well, these people to listen. And again, I don't, it's hard sometimes to know how much they're seeking out these people and finding them and featuring them, and then how much these people really are. But when you talk to people that are Trump people, MAGA people, you it invariably, before you're done, you will hear the words, "What about?"
What
And
about
what about is not an argument. What about is meant to derail an argument. What about is meant to say, "Well, I did so you."
your house is on fire? Well, what about the barbecue? It's
What
on
about the
fire.
fire that happened last week down the block? Well,
I
but
blame
your house is
I
burning.
blame Hate Talk Radio, which for generations was the lead for the conservative point of view. And after listening to Rush Limbaugh and the hate talk that's in every town, large and small, across the nation, they get conditioned to to listening to the argument of nonsense and the construction of falderall and idiocy. And then
Well,
they take it for their own. They take the talking points, and over dinner that night, the husband tells his wife about the bullshit he heard on the radio, and now she
right.
knows about it, and she can tell somebody at the store.
Well, I also think, Michael, that we've become a nation where we don't think about things.
I had a
We don't.
neighbor. I had a neighbor in the parking garage. Nice guy, always been very polite. Gets out of his car and he goes, "There's 5 families that are in charge of everything in this state. The Pelosi's, Gavin Newsom, Feinstein." He went over through a couple more names of people, and he talked all the way to the elevator about it, how they were in charge of everything, were ruining everything. They were going to take property rights. They were going to change the tax scheme. They were going to change the borders and secede from the union. And there was nothing we could do because these 5 Democratic families had maintained charge of everything. Like the argument about Jews. Oh, the Jews, they're in total collusion with one another. They're in charge. They all know what they all think the same. They all know the plan. They're all taken day by day. They get stronger. We get weaker. Pelosi, Newsom, they're in charge. They're taking
Yeah.
our life's blood. They're taking our precious bodily fluids, and we're powerless to stop them. The only place that they go for refuge, of course, is talk radio, hate radio, Republican hate radio. And
Meanwhile,
I'd never seen this guy in
meanwhile,
that mood before, but this is where he gets it. He got out
yeah.
of the car and he was an angry man.
No, listen, I know hundreds of people like that, Michael, that they listen to that crap all day, and it's forced it upon them by companies that have no moral responsibility for what they put out there. Hello, Sinclair. Hello, Salem.
Hello, Salem. Yeah, you Christian bastards.
They have no responsibility in their hearts that they're putting this stuff out there. As a matter of fact, they're looking for more of it.
So they can
Michael,
sell it to Barney's Undercoating. Come on down to
yeah,
Barney's Undercoating. We're having a
if
special listening party.
if we could find it in our hearts and souls to do that, you and I'd be working tomorrow.
We could do a hate talk show. They'd
Yeah, I
love
could do
us.
a hate talk show as much as anybody, but I won't do it. I could have stayed in Pittsburgh if I wanted to do that and been a hate talk guy, and probably stayed there and done just fine. But it's not what I want. I just find it morally reprehensible.
It's a coward's way because they know it's show business of a sort and they don't give a damn.
Well, they don't care if they poison people's minds, as long as they sell advertising revenue.
That's what I mean about the undercoating party we're having down at Bernie's. Come down and get your car undercoated.
As long as, because Bernie's pissed off because a white guy is going to take his undercoating job.
10% off if you have a Trump flag.
Yeah, so he'll, by all means, he'll He'll take care of business. So I don't know, Michael. I don't know what the answer is, but you know what? I will say that I
What about a
am.
radio station that plays just Wonderwall over and over again?
Nah, I don't think that would help. Well, that would poison people's minds. And who knows? Maybe that's what maybe we all need transcendental mind cleaning.
What we need is that self-realization.
We need a matter of fact. If I mean, I know you can play instruments. If I could play an instrument, we would form a band called the Transcendental Mind Cleaning Experience, and probably get Taylor Swift out of everybody's mind.
And we'll give you 20% off if you don't have a Trump flag.
Right. And if you do have a Trump flag, you can listen to our FM channel. Oh no, AM. That's right. But really, I mean, when you think about it, the fact that people don't know what to do with AM radio will probably wind up being the downfall of this country.
The
Because,
revolution begins on AM radio.
yeah, because they say, well, you know what? When everything else is in doubt, sell hate.
And you know what? There is no part two to that. Or you can sell,
Right.
there is no part two. You can sell hate, or you can just go syndicated music of your life. Perry Como. When the
Well, I
moon
was
hits your
telling
eye.
somebody this the other day. If I were now somebody were to say to me, "Here is an AM signal. Um, what would you do with it?" Um, I know that a good portion of my daytime programming would be 1 hour podcast type shows. I would go back to a system, and they would be spectral. They would be all different stuff.
Like NBC Monitor on the weekends, 1 hour shows.
Yeah, 1 hour shows. Um, and different divergent points of view. Some of the shows on the weekend might be about home improvement. Some of them might be telling crime stories or something like that. But what AM radio has not latched onto yet is this concept of people want shorter and better. And the people that don't want hate talk.
Well, an hour is shorter. Now you just got to get the better part down.
Yeah. But I think that's, we're living in a world where attention span shrinks every day.
Well, the average trip in a car in LA is about 10 minutes, or some consultant convinced us that it was. So the content and the back announce are all important, because you heard two songs, you have no idea what they are, and you'll never know because you never got to the back announce, because they played a 20-minute set.
Right. Right. And so, I mean, I think that's the future. To me, I mean, I don't know. I'm not a programming consultant or anything, but to find podcast type shows that go back to 1 hour, because these days for the future. Now, I'm not talking about us, but I'm talking about the people that are coming up. Where are they getting their news? TikTok,
Online. Yeah.
online. They don't even go to websites anymore. 10 years ago, you'd say, well, I get it at, Drudge, or I get it at this, I get it at that, but those are outdated. Now, they go to TikTok. If it doesn't fit in their phone, it doesn't matter.
That's true enough.
But I'm thankful that we get a chance to do this all the time, Michael.
Well, we're lucky, and plus we trained for it.
Yeah, it's amazing to think that we trained for we trained for something we didn't know was coming along.
And what was the highlight of today? That big antipasto dish. That's what was that.
That huge antipasto, man. My youngest sister sent me a video of it. Not a video, but a picture of it from yesterday. They had a smaller Thanksgiving and I looked at it and I was like, "Oh my god, I could taste the olive oil." Oh my god. So when I get back to back east in a week or two here, when that whole thing comes together, I'm going to have to. I'm gonna have to. One morning, I will actually just go to an Italian deli and just go live from the Italian deli. I'll show you what's in the place.
So you're going back to get your stuff?
Yeah, I'm going back to get my stuff. The only thing I'm trying to figure out is when, exactly when, but it'll be within the next 2 weeks. My stepmom's 80th birthday will be is in middle December, so I might put the trip off a week, and I'm not going to drive back. I'm just going to pack the stuff in containers and have
Ship it to yourself.
U-Haul or somebody ship it back.
So you're flying both ways?
So I'll fly both ways. Or if I get a half a yawn about me, maybe I'll fly one way and drive back, but in a car.
Well, if you saw the weather in the central part of the Colorado and all adjacent states, you don't
I
want to be
did.
driving through there.
Yeah, I did. That's what changed my mind right there. And it's funny because last year, if you're well, not last year, but 3 years ago when I came out again, I drove in December,
Oh, brazen.
and it was beautiful because the one thing that you don't think about, but that you wind up seeing in this country is all of these incredible small towns with their Christmas lights.
Yeah.
And it's really, I don't know if anybody's ever done a book about it or a photo book, but I was so impressed. I would get off the interstate and drive into small towns just to see. One of the coolest places you'll ever see is in Mitchell, South Dakota. There's the Corn Palace.
The Corn Palace.
The Corn Palace. And the Corn Palace puts lights up around. Now, the Corn Palace is a place where every year they take kernels of corn and they do the sides of the outside of the building
With real corn?
with real corn. So they have, black kernels, blue kernels, and they do artwork. And all these local artists come and they shape it every year to something different. I mean, so it's really cool. It never looks the same any 2 years that you go.
You're a seasonal corn artist in certain states, South Dakota.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, or maybe they bring them in from all over the Midwest. I don't know what the mechanism is, but it's certainly a fascinating. And in at Christmas time, it's all lit up, and yeah. I mean, the whole downtown. It's only one of those places that has a 5 block downtown,
Sure.
but I mean, I was so impressed with that.
Can you get a decent patty melt in that town, do you think?
I had a pretty good breakfast there one year. Not that particular year, but one year I was there. I was doing a cross country drive to half cross country drive to Milwaukee, and we stopped in Mitchell. And we had just one of them lumberjack breakfasts.
Oh, yeah, logger's breakfast.
Yeah, loggers breakfast, and that was badass. a little bit of
It
a
comes
little
it
bit
comes
of
on
everything, man.
comes on a big plate that your sister would use for antipasto.
Yeah, I never saw pancakes and grits on the same plate before, but this place had it.
There's room for them.
And
Make
I'm not a
room.
big grits guy, but in this case, they had
Put a little habanero sauce on them, and they'll be all right.
it was good. It was good, man. I mean, I love shrimp and grits. But this wasn't shrimp and grits. I think they had bacon and blueberries
On the grits,
in the grits,
acceptable.
which works,
Yeah, they're
which
both
really works.
superfoods.
So I mean, I've had blueberry pancakes with bacon on it before, and those
You
are
can put
really good.
you can put bacon on anything. You can put it on a
Yeah,
bacon
yeah. There
sandwich.
isn't much that you screw up by putting bacon on. This little store in Mount Lebanon. Pennsylvania.
Turkey, dressing, and bacon.
Yeah,
See?
used to sell chocolate covered bacon. And while skeptical, by the time I left, I made sure I stopped by that store and grabbed me like a bag full of chocolate covered bacon for the trip.
Just in case.
Oh no, it wasn't just in case. It was absolutely. There was no in case about it. It was these probably won't last till Omaha, but
Not much does last past Omaha.
no, there's a whole international change line there. All right, Pally, we got a show tomorrow about cars, and we're going to do that show tomorrow,
8 o'clock in the morning.
8 o'clock in the morning, live. And I'm not actually sure what we're going to be doing.
It could be a
Um,
recap of the car show.
yeah, recapping. Yeah, we're going to have our friend Brad from Honda is going to join us talking about the new Honda Prelude and Honda
Accord.
No. The electric Honda. It is a mashup between General Motors and Honda.
Who was the lead?
Well, Honda is the lead because the car is going to be a Honda, but they are going to use the Ultium battery pack, Ultium chassis that General Motors has developed.
So they're putting a Honda body.
So they're going to put a Honda
GM
and then an
chassis.
Acura on it, a body on it. I think the Acura is going to be the EDX or something like that. And one of the questions we're going to ask and try to find out is why are people trying to kill the electric car?
What people?
Remember they had that book several years ago, Who Killed the Electric Car?
Yes.
And actually, I know the guy the book was written about. And
Does he work for the petroleum industry?
no, he worked for General Motors, but at that point they didn't think the electric car was going to be the future, and it was costing them, I don't know, $20,000 or something for every car they produced, and at least they wouldn't sell them; they would just lease them. That old GM EV1.
I remember that.
Yeah, so they decided to get out of the electric car business, and they recalled all of the electric cars because they were only out on leases. But a few people didn't give them back. A few people said, "You come and find it." And there are about 4 or 5 of them actually in Southern California that are still out there.
Driving around on the 101 and nobody can stop them.
Yeah, I don't know. You know what? I don't know if they're driving. I think the University of Southern California has one. There's one in a parking garage in Orange County.
Well, who's trying to kill them? Who's trying to kill the electric car now?
It seems to be many people in the media, a lot of automotive media people.
Well, they like the old days. They like it was.
Well, not even that. It's just I don't quite understand. I'm going to try to find somebody who maybe can explain it to us, but I don't understand why you would want to kill the electric car.
Well, there's a political social stance about it. You don't.
But
you don't eat with someone who drives an electric car.
It's an evolving technology.
Democratic futurists.
Yeah, it's an evolving technology that I think is as they become more popular and the companies work on some of the problems. I mean, the biggest problem with the electric car is not the car; it's the charging systems.
People are assuming that there's going to be no place that they're going to be on the side of the road with no place to charge it.
Yeah, and in some cases they're true because the charging system infrastructure in this country is horrible. There's no John D. Rockefeller out there with a monopoly saying that we're going to build, all of these little places where people go and get their cars filled up with our oil that we're pulling out of the ground. Is instead it's a few different networks of somewhat unreliable charging machines.
So you still can't drive coast to coast in an electric car.
Well, you can, and it'll get much better next year because several of the car companies have bowed down to Elon Musk and said, you know what, you got something here. You were the only one to put all these charging stations together and made a network that goes coast to coast and is relatively free.
And any car can charge at any station instead of having to get an adapter or
Well, the older cars will have to get adapters, but as of the 2025 model year, I think all of these cars will now come with Tesla's adapter. Tesla's plug will be the standard. It'll be on all cars or almost all cars. I think there's a few that haven't gotten on board yet, but they'll get there.
yeah, I noticed that no matter how awful Elon Musk is as a person, he still gets his business done in SpaceX, and he still gets his business done with his car system. And anything he says or wants to do is just all right with America. It's just not like we're beholding to him or we're needing for anything. Just our space program on our cars.
Yeah, Musk is he's not a likable guy, but he's a smart guy.
He's the Henry Ford of our day.
Yeah, I mean, he really is. I mean, there would be no electric car industry without him. Or there would have been some electric car industry, but it certainly wouldn't have advanced to where it is without Tesla. And when you can set an industry like that on its ear, as he has, there has to be something about you. He seems to be a despicable guy. I don't know. I don't know him well. I just know the stuff that he puts out there.
Doesn't seem like he's long for this world. He's burning too brightly.
Well, people forget that Henry Ford
Was a
was a notorious anti-Semitic,
was a god awful person.
was a horrible person. Thomas Edison, another horrible person.
Nikolai Tesla. What about him? What about poor Nikolai?
I don't know much about Nikolai personally. I know what he did. I know that him and Edison had the whole battle about AC/DC and so on and so forth.
And Tesla was right.
And Tesla was right. And so I know that there's a lot around that. And I saw a documentary about Tesla, but it was kind of a little bit more superficial. So I don't exactly know what his if he was an Italian socialist or what the deal was.
Well, his idea was going to be power for everybody, free.
Yeah, and which according to his standards could have been done.
Right.
Except, in America they said, wait a second.
Free?
Free?
What kind of a deal is that?
Well, how am I going to make any money out of that? Next, you'll be telling me I got to give people water for free. Next. All right, Michael.
Have a good show tomorrow morning, Ben.
Thank you, Michael. We will. I'll catch up with you on Monday if the Lord's willing. The creek don't rise. I'm glad you had a good Thanksgiving.
This was kind of a quiet, Freaky Friday, wasn't it? You can't have too many freaky things happening on the day after Thanksgiving. People are recovering.
Well, yeah, and I mean, we could have talked an hour about Black Friday, I guess, and how you would kill yourself going to the store, but that's not really happening as much. Well, it's happening. It's just not. It's not the same concept it was. Now your freaky, your Black Friday is spent on the computer more than anything else.
Our Black Friday lasts the entire month of December. Any day can be Black Friday. Welcome to Black Friday. In fact, Black Friday is Black Thursday, Black Monday, Black Tuesday.
Yeah, well, we have that,
Black Saturday.
We'll get together on Cyber Monday, which is supposed to be the best deals of the year. And of course, I don't have any money to buy anything anyway, so
I'm not buying anything.
shopping has become a spectator sport for me. Not only that, I don't. There's nothing I really need, Michael.
You need somebody to send your stuff from Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I mean, I need to get the stuff, but also I don't need a bigger TV. I don't need, if I want, if you said to me, well, what are you, I mean, I mean, I have a turntable, I have stereo equipment, I have pretty much everything I need.
Do you have that copy of Wonderwall by George Harrison?
I do have a copy of Wonderwall. I know I do. I think I bought it. I was thumbing through a record bin in San Francisco.
So you bought it twice.
I think I paid $1 for it the second time.
That's a bold price. I would have. I won't give you more than 99 cents for this damn thing.
I should have taken it up there and says, "Listen, if I buy these 5, will you throw this one in free?"
Yes.
Many of the Wonderwall music albums, I'm pretty sure, wound up as Christmas decorations in record stores. You know how they put the records, put string in them and put them on the tree?
I like it when they melt them somehow and turn them into like a bowl.
Yeah, like something. I bet you many of the Wonderwall music albums wound up as.
Where's the car keys? It's in the Wonderwall bowl.
Or there was a big "Baby You Can Drive My Car" display, and if you looked at the 4 cars, the 4 tires on the cars that the Beatles were hanging out in, they were all Wonderwall music. George Harrison. I'm not going to destroy a Beatles album for this.
Even if it's on VJ.
Exactly. All right, man. See you on
A
Monday.
miraculous, melodious Monday.
Yes. Peace, love, free the hostages. I'll throw that in there this week. And Manischewitz, baby.
Of course. What a wine.
See you, Mikey.
See you then.